Welcome, everyone. We are live on this lovely. Ooh, we're Wednesday already. Already it's Wednesday. Feels like time is rushing on by. This morning, let's talk about writing your story. Because I was talking to someone the other day, and we are all writing a story. We are either rewriting the story of how it used to be, or we are deliberately writing a new story. Now, every author worth his salt has a synopsis. A synopsis is just a snapshot of what's happening. You know, that little paragraph that you read to lure you into buying the book. Yes? And it tells you everything there. It says this is what you can expect in the book. And it usually asks you a question at the end. The final sentence would be, can they do it? Can they survive? You know, to pique your curiosity. And for me, I flip to the very end of the book and I read how it ends. Because if the ending is brilliant, I can handle anything going on in the middle. Hmm, sounds familiar. This is what life is like. When you deliberately become the author of your life experiences, you write out a short synopsis of what you want your life to be like. Remember, you're telling the story. So, if you are on chapter 2 of your life story and things seem to be a little bit rocky, remember the ending of the story. Remember how it is supposed to end. Remember that you are successful. You've made it. Remember that part. Because when you know the ending, how it turns out, well, then, if chapter 2 seems a little bit rocky, if chapter 2 seems, oh my God, what am I going to do? Nothing is changing. If that is chapter 2, chapter 2 is just a simple bridge to chapter 3. What's going to happen in chapter 3? Because you can't keep telling chapter 2. I mean, you could, but what fun would that be? So, if you're in your life right now in a particular state, look at it as a chapter. Look at it like it's a chapter, whatever that state is that you're in. And if it's a chapter, it's just telling you what's happening now, what you're experiencing now. But because you know the end, whatever you go through in chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, you know how it ends. So what does that do? It keeps you inspired to make it to the end because you already know how it pans out. This is what you and I are doing on a daily basis. Now, we are either doing it deliberately or unwittingly, which means you're using the past experiences, so the previous chapters. You're using those because you think that that's all there is. You're unaware that you are the writer, you are the author. So you just go along with whatever that chapter is, and however it turns out, it turns out. But as a deliberate author, you have already stipulated what the end is. So, chapter 3 is going to unfold with the end in mind because the end has already been determined. Now, don't get it twisted. Even when we are unwitting in our lives, the end is already determined. Oh, how, you say? Because you have a predominant synopsis that you're living under. What is that synopsis? Let's play around a little bit, shall we? This is the best part of living right here, where we get to toy and play around with things. For instance, if you're living in the past, that old synopsis would say something like, and George had a very tough beginning, but things are looking up. Can he stick to it? Will his life change? Or will he continue being what he always has been? That is unwitting. But deliberately, here's the synopsis. George may have had a difficult beginning. George may have started behind the eight ball on the other side of the tracks. He may have been laughed at, but George sees the bigger picture. George knows that he can become anything he wants to be. So every day George molds and shapes himself. What will he shape himself into today? Now, when you do that, you are eager to see what happens. You're eager to see how it turns out. You're excited. Why? Because you've told yourself that George has already figured out that he can mold and shape himself into anything he wants. So now you're excited to see what he will shape himself into. Whereas in the other synopsis, George is just going along with what he's always done, what he's always been. And it's the only thing he's willing to accept of his life. You see, when you know the ending, right? When you know the ending, when you know that, spoiler alert, a lot of people don't like to know the ending because they think it takes away from the pleasure of the book. But that's not the case. You only know how it ends, but you don't know what they went through. You don't know how they triumphed. It's like when in Smallville, Superman begins to come into his power. See, we already know that he's the Man of Steel. We already know that. But we don't know what it was like as a child. We don't know what it was like as a teenager. But it shows you progressively over episode after episode what he learned and unlocked about himself so that he could come to know what we knew. He was the Man of Steel. See? And because we knew he was the Man of Steel, we knew that he was going to fight Lex Luthor and win. We knew that. But we didn't just cry at Lex Luthor and go, oh my God, his life is over. He'll never be the same again. We didn't do that. What did we do? We held on to the end. We knew that he was the Man of Steel, that he was powerful. And we knew he could overcome, even though Lana was wearing that little sliver of kryptonite, that he could never seem to get close enough to her. We knew he was the Man of Steel. We knew eventually he would stumble upon why he couldn't get closer to her. See? We knew he would figure out that kryptonite. Listen, we even knew he would figure out his kryptonite so fast and so much, and we held on to it. What do we say now when we have a problem that seems to be reoccurring? We say, oh my God, that's totally my kryptonite. Is that not what we say? So what I am seeking to encourage you and myself to do this morning is to get out a little notebook. I don't like writing with lines in my book, so I get a sketch pad. Not that I doodle, I just don't like lines in my notebook. Get out that blank piece of paper. What is your synopsis? You see what you're doing? You're now creating your ideal state. Well, you're defining the ideal state by writing the synopsis. And when you write the synopsis of your life, right? What are you doing? You are the one now dictating how your life will turn out. Every twist and every turn. Everything. Because why? You are the champion. You are the hero. Right? That's what you're doing. So how exciting can you be? How thrilling can you make it? Well, that depends on your personality, your nuance. So the inner conversations that you're having in your mind's eye, that's what's dictating day by day by day. But those day by day conversations are tiny pieces of the whole picture. So when you change your inner dialogue, your inner conversation, what are you doing? You're matching your synopsis, you're matching the end. And because you know how it's turning out, well, then why do you need to fret? Why do you need to worry? Write your synopsis. Some people say write your obituary. I prefer to write the synopsis, not the obituary, because that's so bleak. Because listen, we all know we are going to expire and leave these bodies. That's inevitable. But how do you want to live? That's the question. If you choose how you want to live, well, then you can write in the synopsis how you expire. Oh, really? I can decide? If you can decide everything else, what's holding you back from that? What's not determined is the when. We don't know. But you can't spend your life living, well, when is it going to be? When is it going to be? That's not fun, is it? No. But if you write your synopsis and it says, Susan had a most beautiful life. Every experience was just thrilling one after the other. Meeting her Mr. Right, her ideal job. Write the synopsis of your life. Because if you write the synopsis of your life, here's how it works. When you go to the library or the bookstore and you pick up a book and you read the synopsis, after you read the synopsis, do you want to read the story? Well, then, write the synopsis of your life in such a fashion that you are excited and want to live your life. This is this is something that should make living a lot more fun and a lot simpler. Because when you write in there in the synopsis, you notice you're writing all of the greatness in there. Every book worth their salt. Read the synopsis. I don't like books that don't have synopses. I want to know what's going to happen so I can decide if I'm going to invest in reading it. It's quite like I started reading Diana Gabaldon Outlander, and there was this one chapter I could not get past because it was a violent chapter. And I closed the book and I never continued reading it. Even though I knew everything turned out beautifully, I just could not get past that part. You see how that is for us sometimes in life? Where we've suffered something and we feel because we can't get past that part, we feel as though, well, just throw the book out. I don't need to read it anymore. We all have those chapters in our lives. But as the author, you are now the editor too. You can edit that story. Edit, or in the words of Neville Goddard, revise. So this thing happened. This harshness happened. How do you want to rewrite that? Do you want to rewrite it in the synopsis as there was no greater triumph than what she had overcome or what he had overcome that brought them to the precipice of their life? And everybody wanted to know, how did they do it? You can revise like that. Remember, Shakespeare said all the world is a stage and we are merely players on it. Don't hate the player, baby, hate the game. That's what they tell you. Right? But listen, you can create the type of game you want to play. Oh, you see, when we begin to look at life in that fashion, that we can write our synopsis. What type of experiences do you want to have? If you don't know the type of experiences you want to have, but you know what the synopsis is, meaning you know how it turns out, well, then, that master state, if you would get up every morning and read your synopsis and be excited by your synopsis, every time a chapter unfolds, you'd be like, oh my God, how amazing. I can't wait for the next chapter. This is so exciting. And you are eager to read the story of your life. You ever read Tina? You know Tina Turner's biography. Whew, that was a page turner. I also read Mahalia Jackson's. What? Now listen, page turners. What? You couldn't put them down. Begin to write a synopsis that gives you that same excitement to live your life. Think about it. You are the writer. So write the story in the best way possible. Because every chapter is going to unfold. Why? Because the end has been determined. But you see, if you don't determine the end, well, you're ruled now by cause and effect. Because you chose to relive that memory, oh, look, here's the effect that goes with it. And you keep reliving cause and effect, until you do what? Reap a destiny. So it looks like this thing was preordained. No, it wasn't. It was just cause and effect. And nobody wanted to be deliberate. Not because they didn't really want to, but because they didn't know they could be. But here today is how you make it simpler. You get out that blank piece of paper and you write the synopsis, the master experience, so that if you're writing the relationship chapter, what's the synopsis of the relationship? Star-crossed lovers met at a time when things seemed impossible. His life was going one way, her life was going another. Seemed to be like ships in the night, passing each other by. But then one day, something beautiful happened. And here they are, in the midst of their beautiful love story. We don't know what the something is that happened. But now you want to read it, don't you? This is what you and I are doing every single day when we have those inner conversations in our mind's eye. The moment you say, my life was so hard. I was abandoned. And nobody wants me. Nobody cares about me. Nobody loves me. That's the synopsis that you're writing. So what do you think chapter 1 will be like? Chapter 2. We think that will be like chapter 3. But listen, if you get to chapter 4 and you say, by golly, whew, I would like a new experience. Well, write down what you want that synopsis to be so that chapter 4 can pick up with some kind of light in it, with some kind of excitement and passion and brilliance in it. That's what we do. So every time you tell the story or review the synopsis of how poor and unfortunate you started out and thus remain to be, every time you complain in that synopsis, well, I can tell you clearly how it's going to turn out. Because you keep reliving the same synopsis. But what would it be like if you rewrote a different synopsis? You could, if you want to get through some health issues, write the synopsis. It started out as a struggle, being able to take those stairs. But look at her now. What a triumph. She can climb stairs. There was even a championship where she was the master stair climber in her city. We don't know. You have to read to find out how she did it. Where did all that pain go? Read and find out how she did it. You see, the intrigue happens. How do you want your life to be? How do you want it to be? In the midst of their rocky relationship, all hope seemed lost. But one night, as Sherry was walking by, a most life-changing experience, a beautiful life-changing experience happened. And what was once a broken relationship has now been reconciled. Read to find out more. Look, perhaps you're tech savvy then. What does the image of your thumbnail say? Because that's why somebody would want to click on it. Right? We all hate clickbait. You click on it when you expect one thing and underwhelm. So perhaps you're in that age group and you say, well, I'm going to create these ideal thumbnails, these questions that grab the imagination and make you want to watch my video. Well, the video is your life. And if you have the thumbnail and well, now you want to live that life, don't you? And whatever happens, you know, I made it through the rain, right? You made it through anything because you wrote that in your script for yourself. And listen, then you know the law. You can insert the law into your story to do what? Cushion the blows and the hardships of experience. You see, you and I have it within us to write our ideal story. And when you write the ideal story, that synopsis has to grab you. It has to persuade you to pick up the book and read chapter after chapter. You ever heard somebody say, oh my God, I read 700 pages in 2 days. I just couldn't put it down. See? That is what persistence looks like, to stay in the state of the synopsis. It's got you in its thrall. You don't want to put it down. You're biting your nails. You're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? You're so excited. That is what persuades you to remain faithful to what you think is imaginary. It is only imaginary in the beginning. You can go to the store and pick up Harry Potter. You can go to the store and pick up Outlander, all books in the series. You can go and pick up Bridgerton from any bookstore. But they all started where? I wonder what it would be like if I had this main character who was like totally whatever they were. Ooh, this is exciting. And you are so enamored by your main character that you have to sit there and flesh out their story. What are you? Totally enamored with it. Nothing else is in your mind. You have no desire to be anywhere else except to write their story. That is how you persist in the state of the wish fulfilled. So today, that is the encouragement for us. What story do you want to tell? Because the type of story you tell will determine what ends up on your tombstone. So don't seek to write anything on the tombstone. That is inevitable, and it will be written based upon the synopsis that you write. And if you are writing your synopsis and you say, oh, you know what? That's a little too dramatic. Let me tone that down a little bit. I want more peace in my life. I don't want chaos. So you get your eraser and you erase those words that entail chaos. And you write in the peace that you would like in your synopsis. So today, my beautiful friends, I trust that this makes a little bit more sense and makes it a little bit easier for you and I. Because as part of the synopsis, if you have a particular character in your story and they just rub you the wrong way, well, you have to change the way you see them, don't you? So you erase what they currently are, being a nuisance in your life. And instead of having them be a nuisance, you say, no, 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 no. I don't want them to be a nuisance. I want them to be kind, understanding, empathetic, fun-loving. That's what you want them to be. So you erase nuisance. Oh, they get on my nerves. I know, that's not what I want. And you write into the synopsis what you want that person to become. And as chapter 3 unfolds, that person begins to change in your life. Why do they change? Because you changed. You rewrote the synopsis. But in order to rewrite the synopsis, you have to see them differently. How many times have we stopped and asked ourselves, oh my God, why did the writer kill off that character? See how it makes you feel? Especially, even though they were the crudest of villains, you still had a place in your heart for the villain. Listen, you can still write the villain in your story, but they can be a villain from a distance. They don't have to be a villain to taunt you. You see? Be encouraged today, my beautiful friends, to write a most spectacular synopsis. The end of the story. Uh-oh. The end of the story. Write it. Your synopsis. Uh-oh, baby needs a little help. Let's take a moment right now, shall we, to welcome everyone into the space this morning. Who's here? We have Hilarion, Beloved Love Troll, V224. I see you here on Twitter. I sure do. YouTube and Facebook. Hey, Double A and Asanya. I see you. Well, you're the two that have made yourselves known in the chat. The others, I see you too. Who's here on Fanbase this morning? Flo Smiles, Miss McQueen. Oracle Treehouse, Matthias, Malik. Hey, Sherry. Happy is in the house. Lala is in the house. Yeah, I see you all here. Listen, go forth today for the love of God in all things and start to see life in a different fashion. You see, we think that scripting is magical. The power is not in the fact that you wrote it down. The power is in the fact that you chose what you wanted to write. You chose what you wanted to write. That's why it works. That's how it got its power. You infused your synopsis with your life because the synopsis is inanimate. It is not alive, but you are life. So you impregnate your synopsis with life. Oh, the little chickadee. So, my beautiful friends, as you hear the bowl this morning, what kind of synopsis do you want to write? I don't know if I grew up reading romance novels, historical ones. You have writers like Joanna Lindsay, um, Julia Quinn. Uh, God, there's so many. You've got um, Oscar Wilde. You've got C.L. Lewis. You've got so many writers out there. But you are also a great writer. Did you know that? So, what beautiful story will you tell? All you've got to do is write this synopsis. If you do not know what a synopsis is, it's that little paragraph at the back or the very front flap of a book that tells you, here's what started out, here's how it's going. But it says it in such a beautiful way that it lures you in, that you want to read it. That's what the synopsis is. This is why they tell you don't judge a book by its cover, yeah? You look at the photo on the front and you're like, ugh, I'm not moved by that. But then you read the synopsis and you're like, oh, tell me more. So, what story do you want for your life? Because we are, after all, actors on the stage of life. But we're also the writer. So, write it this morning as you hear the bowl. And as you write it, as you write it, allow the feeling to totally overtake you. That's, oh Lord, the feeling overtook somebody this morning. Hey baby, are you stuck? Give mommy a minute. Oh, good boy. That's a good boy. Allow the feeling as you write your synopsis to overtake you. Immerse yourself in it. Become wrapped up in it. RAPT, raptured. Yeah? And when you do that, see that feeling? When I get that feeling, right? When you get the feeling, when you write your synopsis, when you get the feeling and you write your synopsis, what happened to you? You fall in love with who and what you are. Well, why wouldn't you? Look at how beautiful the story is, right? So now that you've fallen in love with it, it's a page turner. You don't want to put it down. And because you don't put it down, what do? Persist in how that synopsis makes you feel. And then you don't go out. You don't go out looking, where's chapter 4? Nah, chapter 4 emerges, and all of a sudden you hear, chapter 4. And you begin to have the corresponding experience. You don't have to make chapter 4 occur. It is the very synopsis itself that you write that causes chapter 4 to unfold for you. So I trust that you are intrigued now to write your own story. Doesn't matter where you started. How do you want to end up? Clearly. Clearly somebody's excited this morning. Let's get the bowl, shall we? And as you're listening to the bowl and bird song, even though you don't have the words of your synopsis written just yet, you have the feeling of your synopsis. And it is the feeling that will compel you to write your story. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2. Twitter, thank you all for being here today. Oh, you know I love you and appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Hilarion, beloved love troll, V224. I'll see you tonight if you're available at 10:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I actually don't know the title of the lecture for tonight. I have no idea. I haven't posted it yet. But I will. Rest assured I shall. YouTube and Facebook, Double A, Asanya, and for the others who've not made themselves known in the chat, I do love and appreciate you, and I will see you also. Fanbase, I'm coming. Just hold tight. Gotta free up some hands. Much love, everybody. Much love.